The fourth time we passed the same grain elevator, Dara's hands were so tight on the wheel I could see the tendons in her wrists. She didn't say anything. Neither did I. That was the problem by then. I should back up. Dara and I aren't together anymore. I want you to know that before anything else, not for sympathy, but because it changes how you'll hear what I'm about to describe. The ending isn't a mystery solved. It's two people in a car who stopped agreeing on what they were seeing and what that cost them. The drive was supposed to be 3 hours. Her cousin's wedding, a town called Eustis, northeast of the city, mid-October. We left at 9 on a Saturday morning. Her car, her phone on the dash for navigation, my travel mug already getting cold because I'd forgotten it on the counter and had to run back for it. Small thing. I remember it because it's the last moment I can locate where everything was exactly what it appeared to be. First hour was highway, then a state road, then a county road north for the final stretch. The county road was where it started. We turned onto it at 10:23. 2 lanes, rough asphalt, ditches on both sides, then flat agricultural fields, then tree lines in the distance. A farmhouse, set back with a dog in the yard that watched us pass without moving. The radio had gone to static when we left the state road. I'd turned it off rather than find something new. And the silence settled in the way silence does when neither person feels like filling it. Dara had been quiet since we hit the county road. Not the comfortable kind. Her cousin there was history there I only knew fragments of. The kind of family history that gets summarized as it's a lot and then dropped. She'd mentioned it the previous night briefly, then gone to bed early. I knew the shape of when she needed space, and that morning had the same shape. So I watched the fields and let her drive. At 10:41, we passed a grain elevator on the right side of the road. Corrugated steel siding, faded blue paint on the upper half, not uniformly faded, darker at the very top where the weather hit hardest, lighter in a band through the middle. A gravel private drive leading back to it with a chain strung between 2 wooden posts. The chain had a slight droop at the center, like it had been hanging long enough to stretch. Power lines running along the road, dip toward the property and back up. Dara said something about her grandfather, that he'd worked at one in another state when she was young. She remembered the smell, grain dust, summer heat, the specific warmth of a corrugated steel building in July. The memory had something attached to it she didn't want to get into while driving. I put my hand on her arm for a moment. She glanced at me and almost smiled. We kept driving. At 10:58, we passed a grain elevator on the right side of the road. I was looking out the passenger window when it came into frame. Not because I was watching for it. The motion just caught my eye the way anything does when you've been staring at flat fields long enough. Something in my peripheral vision snagged. I turned. Same corrugated steel. Same faded blue. Darker at the top. Lighter in the middle band. Same gravel drive. Same chain with the droop at the center. We were past it in 4 seconds. I looked at the GPS. 18 minutes remaining. It had said 22 when we turned onto the road. 35 minutes ago. Did we just pass that elevator again? A beat. What elevator? Blue one. Grain elevator. You mentioned your grandfather. I know what I said. She checked the mirror. There are a lot of grain elevators on rural roads. They look alike. The paint fade was the same. The chain had the same. I'm trying to focus. I turned back to the window. A crow was sitting on a fence post at the edge of the field, just sitting, not moving as we passed. Watching the car the way the dog had watched it. I noted it without meaning to and kept going. I told myself, similar structures, different locations, I wasn't paying close attention. I mostly believed it. At 11:19, we passed a grain elevator on the right side of the road. This time I had my phone ready. I raised it to the window and took a photo as we passed. Blurry through the glass, a little motion blurred, but the blue paint visible. The chain, the droop. I looked at the GPS. 14 minutes remaining. I looked at the odometer. 19 miles on this road. I looked at the clock. 56 minutes since we'd turned onto it. I opened the clock app and started screenshotting the GPS at intervals. Not announcing it, just doing it. 11:22, 16 minutes remaining. 11:31, 15 minutes remaining. 11:40, 13 minutes remaining. A crow on a fence post at the edge of the field, not moving as we passed. I noted it, filed it, kept going. "Something's wrong with the GPS," I said. "It's recalculating. It's been recalculating for 40 minutes. The arrival time keeps resetting. Road conditions, construction maybe. There's no construction. There's nothing on this road." A long pause. The fields ran flat and identical on both sides. The tree line in the distance hadn't changed in any way I could measure. The sky was a consistent October gray, the kind with no weather in it, just color. "We're going to be late," she said. "I know. That's what I'm saying. I mean," she stopped. "I can't be late for this. Not for this one." And there it was. Not the GPS. Not the road. The thing underneath, which had been underneath since we packed the car the night before. I looked at her profile. The particular set of her expression when she was managing something she couldn't afford to put down. "Okay," I said. I went back to screenshotting the GPS. 11:53, 16 minutes remaining. A crow on a fence post. I didn't say anything. At 12:07, we passed the elevator again. I watched it the full time it was visible, counted. 4 seconds at road speed. Faded blue, darker at the top. Chain with the droop. Power lines dipping toward the property and back up. The GPS said 11 minutes remaining. I had 6 screenshots now, spanning 45 minutes, all showing arrival times between 11 and 18 minutes. We had covered, according to the odometer, 31 miles on a road that should have been 20. I turned to Dara. "I need you to look at something." "I'm driving." "At a stop then." "There are no stops." "Dara." I waited until she glanced at me. "Something is actually wrong. I don't know what it is, but the numbers aren't adding up and we keep..." I stopped myself. "Please, just look at the photos." She didn't look at the photos. She looked at the road, both hands on the wheel, and I watched the tendons in her wrists. "I need to get to this wedding," she said. Her voice was completely flat. The tone that means the sentence is true in a way that has nothing to do with the subject. I put the phone down. I looked out the window. A crow sat motionless on a fence post and watched us pass. Here is the thing I've tried to describe to people and mostly failed. The fear wasn't the elevator, wasn't the GPS. Those were symptoms. The fear was this. I was watching the world stop functioning according to its own rules, quietly, without spectacle. And the person next to me needed it not to be happening. Not because she was irrational, because she was human, because she was carrying something heavy going into that day, and the one thing that would have made it heavier was being on a county road at noon on a Saturday with an hour of unexplained driving behind us and no arrival in sight. So she was holding the floor up by deciding it wasn't giving way. I understood that completely. And I was alone anyway. That's the part that doesn't translate. That specific aloneness, being understood by someone who can't afford to understand you right now. Standing on the same floor, feeling the same wrongness through your feet, and looking over to find the other person's eyes fixed carefully forward. You can love someone and still be completely alone in a moment. I know that now in a way I didn't before that road. At 12:22, I turned off the GPS. Dara noticed immediately. "What are you doing?" "Trying something. We need that. I want to see what happens without it." A pause. Her hands shifted on the wheel. "We'll get more lost." I let that sit between us. "I'm not sure we can," I said. She didn't answer. I watched the road. No navigation, just the compass app, still pointing northeast. The odometer, the clock. 12:38. A crow on a fence post. I had stopped filing it. I was just watching it now. This crow, or this version of this crow, sitting on its post at the edge of the field, turning its head to follow the car with a stillness that felt less like an animal watching and more like something marking our passage. I know how that sounds. I'm including it because it's what I noticed. At 12:51, a grain elevator appeared on the right side of the road. No GPS. No navigation of any kind. Faded blue paint. Chain with the droop. Power lines dipping toward the property. Dara slowed down. Not stopped. Slowed from 50 to maybe 20 miles an hour, creeping past it. Close enough now to see the padlock on the chain, the discoloration at the base where water had been sitting for years. A dented section low on the near side I hadn't been close enough to notice before. She looked at it. I looked at her. She sped back up without speaking. 30 seconds of silence. Then, very quietly, pull up the clock. I showed her the phone. 12:51. We left the highway at 10:23. Yes. She exhaled through her nose. Not a sigh. Something more controlled than a sigh. Call your brother, she said. I looked at her. Tell him what road we're on. The county. Tell him where we are. A pause. Tell someone we're here. I called my brother, got his voicemail, left the road name, the county, the direction we'd been traveling. I tried to sound like someone leaving practical directions, and not like someone doing the math on whether they needed to be found. I'm not sure I succeeded. Dara pulled over at 1:08. No announcement. Just gravel under the tires and then stillness and the engine ticking in the quiet. She put it in park, left her hands on the wheel. Outside, flat fields, distant tree line, an October sky gone the gray of old dishwater. No houses visible, no signs, no movement anywhere except a crow lifting off a fence post, 200 meters ahead, flying a long straight line northeast, until it disappeared. We sat in it. 1 minute, maybe 2. I watched her. She was looking at a fixed point through the windshield. Her breathing was deliberate in a way that breathing only gets when someone is managing it. Then she said, I'm going to turn around, okay? And we're going to drive back the way we came, okay? And we're going to see. She still hadn't looked at me. I should have looked at the photos, she said. I didn't say anything. Earlier, when you asked, her hands moved on the wheel without gripping. I should have looked. It wouldn't have changed. I know what it would have changed. Quiet. Precise. I know. The fields ran to the horizon in every direction. I reached over and put my hand on hers. She didn't pull away. She also didn't turn. She drove back southwest. Same road, same asphalt. Same flat geography running past the windows in reverse. The sun was behind cloud cover now, the light directionless, making the fields look like photographs of fields rather than the real thing. We didn't talk. At 1:29, a grain elevator appeared on the left side of the road. Same steel, same faded blue. The chain from this direction had the droop at the center. Dara slowed, stopped this time, fully on the shoulder. We sat there and looked at it together. A grain elevator in a field on a rural county road, completely ordinary. The kind of thing you pass without registering 50 times on a long drive. Then, she pulled back onto the road. At 1:53, we reached the junction with the state highway. She turned south without a word. I watched the county road disappear in the mirror, the long straight line of it going northeast, flat and empty, already looking like nothing. The GPS recalculated. New route. Different road, further west. Dara followed it. We reached the town at 3:12. The ceremony had been over for 2 hours. We walked into the reception hall during the first toast. Her cousin was across the room. She saw Dara come in. I watched her face, do the thing faces do when someone finally arrives after you'd quietly given up on them. Not anger. The other thing. The sadness of an expectation you'd already finished grieving. Dara crossed the room anyway. They hugged for a long time. I stood near the back wall with a glass of water I didn't drink and felt the specific quality of having arrived inside something that had already happened. We didn't talk about the road that night, or the next morning, or on the drive home, which took 3 hours and exactly without incident. Not a word. Not for almost 2 weeks. Then one evening, she sat down across from me and said, I looked it up. I waited. The road, the county property records. She looked at the table between us. 1 grain elevator registered to that road. 1. I don't have an explanation. She said it carefully, like she'd rehearsed it. I need you to know that. I don't have one. I know. I was scared. No inflection. Just placed it there. Not of the road, of what it meant if you were right. I looked at her. There were things I could have said. Things I'd been turning over for 2 weeks about the hours on the shoulder of that road, about how long I'd been alone with it before she slowed down, about what it feels like to watch someone hold the floor up while you're both feeling it give. I didn't say any of them. I know, I said again. She nodded. We stayed there in it for a while. It wasn't enough. But it was true. And it was what we had. We ended 4 months later, mostly for other reasons. That's what I tell people. It's not wrong. I still have the screenshots. 6 of them. Time-stamped across 45 minutes. Arrival time cycling between 11 and 18 minutes, like a clock that kept forgetting what it was counting. And the one photo through the window blurry. The elevator already half out of frame. The blue paint. The chain. The droop at the center. I've looked at them enough that I don't see them clearly anymore. The way you stop seeing furniture. My brother called back 3 days after that voicemail. Said he was sorry he missed it. Asked if we'd gotten where we were going okay. I said yeah, just took longer than expected. He said GPS does that sometimes in rural areas. Dead zones, signal drift, probably just that. I said probably. I said thanks for calling back. He said of course. Then, you sounded a little weird on the message. You doing all right? I told him yes. I was looking out the window at the parking lot of our building. There was a crow sitting on the concrete barrier at the far end. Not moving. Watching the building. I told him everything was fine. I don't know what was on that road. I don't know if the road was the problem or the navigation or something in the way. Distance stops, meaning what you think it means when the environment is flat and repetitive and you've been driving long enough that your sense of progress detaches from your sense of movement. I don't know. What I know is this. At some point on that road, I stopped believing that going forward guaranteed getting anywhere. That's not a feeling that stays on the road when you leave it. It goes where you go. It just gets quieter until you forget it's there. And then something reminds you, and you realize it never left.